very similar conversation in the National League, because we're looking at two Dodgers right atop the odds right now, Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani. Now, you look at their F4 totals, Mookie Betts 3.1, Shohei Ohtani 3. So even though Ohtani is a DH, he has been almost as valuable as Mookie Betts, who is playing shortstop. It's pretty insane what he's doing. I think a lot of us sort of thought, all right, this is the one year where you can count out Shohei Ohtani and say, all right, other guys can play for that MVP. He might win it with this bat alone.
Going back to our conversation about how BBWAA members vote, I think you could see National League voters voting against someone like Shohei Ohtani in this instance, where there is a bit of a tradition in the National League with the pitcher and not a DH, right? And there's a lot of National League people that take pride in that, whether they write for a National League club or they manage, play, right? Obviously, we're going away with that, but these older members or even younger members, I'm on the younger side myself, but there is this connection to history and whatnot. And so for Shohei Ohtani to be a DH and to not play the field, I think that hurts him in that conversation. I wrote about that earlier this year on for justbaseball.com. We've never seen a designated hitter win the MVP award. I think the most a player was played as the DH was like Frank Thomas, was like maybe 30 games, but then still had another 100 plus over at first base. So we've just never seen anything like that. If Ohtani late in the season does play some outfield, because there's been some discussion about that. I don't know if first base would be in the cards for him necessarily. Again, Freddie Freeman is already there. I've looked into this, and Freddie Freeman did play a little bit of third base in the minors, but I don't think we're going to see anything like that happen. Maybe he couldn't be any worse than Max Muncy. But nevertheless, when it comes to the being a DH for Shohei Ohtani, I think that's going to hurt him in some kind of tie situation. But it still is impressive that without doing anything on defense, his numbers offensively have put him in this echelon with a guy putting up MVP numbers as a shortstop. It's remarkable.
It really is. And I'm looking back at David Ortiz's baseball reference right now to see his MVP finishes, and he was top 5 years in a row, never won it. Closest he got was 2005. He finished second. There's seasons in here where he drove in 130, 140 plus, still did not win the MVP. So like you said, very tough to do it. I almost wonder if in this instance, the fact that maybe the two favorites play on the same team could help Ohtani break that narrative or break that sort of the way that people have always viewed the DH, and they might say, I'm watching Dodger baseball day in and day out, and who is impacting the Dodgers the most? And it's Shohei Ohtani. He's got a 661 slugging percentage, and we're a quarter of the way through the season. 661. Only one other player is over 600, and that's Marcelo Zuna. But 661 is insane, and I don't even think it's unsustainable. Like, I think Shohei Ohtani could maintain a 350, 418, 661 slash line the entire season, because all he's doing is hitting, and he is the best baseball player on the planet. So I can't wait to see what he puts up. And the idea of him in September saying, all right, I'll play some right field, that would be pretty thrilling, because I've been wanting to see him play outfield for years now, because I think I honestly believe he would be the best right fielder in baseball if he decided to play the position, honestly.
Your excitement is definitely spilling over, because when you just look at like the numbers and history says no DH will ever do it. History has said there's no such thing as Shohei Ohtani, and yet here he is. He exists. He's a real thing. So being a unicorn like that, being the guy that's protecting Mookie Betts in the lineup, that's obviously got cachet, right? I think, I can't remember from my article, maybe one player, maybe it was Sean Green. I think Sean Green might have the record for most homers by a Dodger. So, okay, you break the Dodger record. It's got some meaning. It's not the same thing as Roger Maris in the American League. I was also Judge and a Yankee. But nevertheless, Dodger Stadium, it is hard to hit home runs. So if he breaks the Dodgers record, that's going to be really huge, right? That to say that he did something like that in a very difficult ballpark. But if he wins the triple crown, which is very rare to lead all of baseball in both batting average, on base, and slugging. Again, these are exceptions to almost create a new rule. And so if Shohei Ohtani can do these things and check off boxes that nobody has ever checked off before in this same way, I think that could allow an exception and say, you know what, we do need to have a designated hitter as the most valuable player, because bottom line, he was the most valuable player.
It's absurd to think about what he can do this year and those numbers that he can set. And I really hope he does push the envelope and really make these voters think about it, because if you get to the end of the season and these two guys, Betts and Ohtani, are sitting with very similar WAR totals, where WAR is constantly deducting him for being a DH, and his offense is just that good that it keeps that margin thin. Yeah, again, if you're watching this Dodgers team and Mookie Betts is great, but the best hitter and the best player day in, day out is clearly Shohei Ohtani, he might just win it. But at the same time, you also have to acknowledge who Mookie Betts is in this equation. And the fact that the dude went from right field to shortstop, we should give him some love too, because there's a reason he's the favorite right now for the MVP with plus 165 odds. And it's because that transition and the burden that he is taking on this team is huge. I mean, he's out there every single pitch. So we do have to acknowledge Betts is absolutely a favorite in this race.
Yeah, he's still tops. Again, go over to justbaseball.com, check out Cameron's uncle's article on that. And in fact, it's 2-1 odds as far as Shohei Ohtani is concerned when compared with Mookie Betts, right? I think the most interesting part of this debate about who could win and what voters will think, the guy who's the thing, or the guy that's going to have the biggest factor in all this, is Dave Roberts. Now, if you think back to also 2022 when Paul Goldschmidt won MVP, it was his manager, and more importantly, I think it was Nolan Arenado who said, "Hey, no, don't look at me. Paul Goldschmidt is the MVP." And I actually thought it was Nolan Arenado, at least going in that like final week. But Nolan Arenado got out there early and said, "No, keep your eye on this guy. Give him the credit." Dave Roberts in that dugout, he sees things that we don't see, that we know nothing about. And if Dave Roberts is saying, well, look, the reason why we won 104, 105, maybe it's only 100 on the nose, he's going to be the one who says, without Shohei Ohtani in this lineup, well, maybe we'd only win 98 games. Okay, so you don't feel too bad for Dave Roberts. He's fine either way. But if Roberts comes out and stumps for one guy over the other, that's your MVP. End of discussion.
And the thing about it too is, as much as you could argue for either guy, and you wonder who the Dodgers would side with, it's not just the same typical MVP. Each of these guys have won one, but there's only been one player in MLB history who has won in the American and the National League. And all of a sudden, it could be either of them. Either of them can take a piece of history, and it feels like this is like maybe they would give the nod to Betts in house, knowing that there's MVPs coming for Shohei Ohtani, because when he starts pitching again, who's going to be the MVP of the Dodgers? Who's going to be the MVP of the National League? He's going to have that award on lockdown if he gets back to who he was. This might be the year for Betts to do it, but it is another wrinkle you throw into the mix here. One of these guys is going to make history. I guess the question we'll have after that is, do you pick anybody else from the field? Because I have a hard time seeing anybody win that's not wearing Dodger blue.
No, I can't see anyone else. Here, look, going back with what you were saying there, what about and the thought process of Dave Roberts and the coaching staff, but really it's Dave Roberts. They talk baseball all day long. That's what they do. Does Ohtani go to Roberts to say, I want you to give the credit to Mookie? Don't make it me. And does Mookie get there first and go, no, I'm not the guy. I want Shohei to have it and win it in both leagues, like you said, and doing it in back-to-back seasons on top of that, which has never been done at all. So it'll be interesting to see, who's the nicer guy, maybe to push their manager in that way. But every other team that's going to be in this conversation for National League MVP, it's really just one guy doing it, right? I mean, I think maybe in Atlanta, you might make a case like, well, Marcell Ozuna has been really important to Atlanta, in addition to Ronald Acuna Jr. But other than that, if you're over on justbaseball.com looking at Cameron's article, you see one guy from every team. You also see Freddie Freeman, but it's just one guy from each club that's really lifting the team up to a new level. That is a true MVP. And for those guys, they're not going to have to share any votes whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned Freeman too, because as you were talking about who's gonna take the credit, I wonder if Freddie Freeman just steps out. Hey guys, what about me?
Yeah.
I'm pretty good. He might have
Let's break the
65.
tie.
Yeah,
Me.
yeah. He might have 65 doubles by the end of the season, and he'll be like far and away the third place finisher on that team. It's crazy. I mean, you could envision a world where that's the medal stand at the end of the season, that it's like first, second, third. Probably not, but that's how good those guys are. There's one guy that I'm looking at all these odds. There's one guy that jumps out to me, and that's William Contreras, because if the Brewers win that division and Contreras becomes clearly the best catcher in baseball, and he takes that pitching staff and he makes it a lot more than it should be, which is kind of what's been happening so far. There might be a narrative that can be built there, but I have a hard time even buying into what I'm saying, because I just think the numbers are going to be so insane with Betts and Ohtani. But if there was one other guy on this board, I would probably say William Contreras, other than Ellie De La Cruz stealing like 120 bases by the end of the season. It has insane video game numbers, but those are the guys I'm looking at here.
I agree 100%. William Contreras has to be the front runner after Betts and Ohtani with everything that he's been able to do. As you just said, if you're looking at wins above replacement on Fangraphs, I mean, Contreras is right there at number 3, not that far behind. And then if you look at 4 and 5 and Alec Baum and Ketel Marte, both very good players. Who do you have the most confidence in between Contreras, Baum, and Marte to continue and keep this up? And again, it has to be Contreras, especially with what he brings on the defensive side of the spectrum, and that intangible, like you said, controlling that pitching staff, a lot of these new faces too, right? It's Freddie Peralta, and then a lot of guys that just came over, or young guys that have been in the organization. So I think Contreras is that player. De La Cruz maybe is 4 if he does something historic, similar to what we saw with Ronald Acuna Jr. last year, which if you looked at Mookie Betts' numbers, those were MVP-like. Same thing with Freddie Freeman, MVP-like. But what Ronald Acuna Jr. was, again, something we hadn't really seen before. So I think that can have a big impact, right? It's not necessarily the value. It's more of the wow. When we talk about the history of the game and how would you summarize 2023? Well, it's the rise in stolen bases and what Ronald Acuna Jr. was able to do at 40 and 70. Aaron Judge hitting 62 home runs in 2022, and so that could be the case for an Ellie De La Cruz if he is able to reach 100 stolen bases for the first time since 1980 blank.
I actually got that for you right here. I'm 95% sure that I'm right on this one, because I heard it on a broadcast the other day. I believe Vince Coleman was the last guy to do it in 1987. He actually swiped 3 years in a row over 100 bases at the start of his career, 110, 107, and then 109. And then he slacked 81 after that, and he fell off. Only 752 bags in his career. Come on, man. The first 3 years were great to him, but seriously, that's the last time. So we're talking about
what happened after he went to the Mets. Do you remember? Or do
Oh,
we not want to talk about that?
I actually one of these, I don't remember where I got it, but at some point in time, I was at some Mets fan something, and I got a Vince Coleman signed baseball that I don't know what to do with, but I still have it. I think it's sitting over on the shelf right there.
After the
Vince
show,
Coleman.
make sure you do a Google search. Vince Coleman, Mets, firecrackers. You might.
Oh, you know what? Once I do, that story will come back in my head, because you're percolating something in the back of my brain, but I don't remember the whole thing. Regardless, though, we are talking about history. That's what, 30 plus years, 37 years ago. So yeah, if Ellie can get to 100, he's got a shot at it. But ultimately, I still sided Betts and Ohtani, and that's where we're gonna end this topic here. I want you to pick one. Who's your MVP pick? Forget the odds. Forget who's the better bet. If you're just you want to be right about this, are you saying at the end of the season it's going to be Mookie Betts or Shohei Ohtani as the NL MVP?
Shohei Ohtani is the more fun pick, but I am going to go with history and say Mookie Betts playing out of position, 6-time Gold Glove winning right fielder, playing middle infield, doing it mostly as a shortstop, atop a lineup that's going to win 100+ games, setting that table. That is a value that no calculator can possibly figure out. So if the Dodgers can't do something else at shortstop, I think it makes it pretty easy that more times than not, I think Mookie Betts is going to be the safer pick, in my estimation. Ryan, are we going to double up here on Mookie Betts? Who do you have as the Los Angeles Dodgers MVP for 2024?
Throughout here's me looking into the future. The narrative was building towards Mookie Betts until September 17th. Shohei Ohtani starts playing right field and he looks unbelievable. We just say, you know what, man, he hit 57 home runs and now he's the right fielder for the playoffs. We're giving it to Shohei. I think Shohei might win it this year. I'm rooting for Mookie because I agree. I think that's truly special to be dropped in at the 11th hour into shortstop, and what he's doing to go from right field to second base to shortstop. It's insane. But I just think that Shohei is just going to put together a statistical case on the offensive side of things that is so overwhelming that voters just have to give him the award. But we'll see. We'll see how it all works out.
Believe it or not, Freddie Freeman right now sits 5th on his own team in Fangraphs wins above replacement, behind Betts, Ohtani, Will Smith, who's 7th right now,
Wow,
and Teoscar Hernandez, who's 19th. So that will also be interesting to see if there'll be 3 or more Dodgers on anyone's ballot. 3 would probably be the most any team has ever gotten on one ballot.
You never know. I don't know, because you pick what? You pick 10, right?
Yeah, you go 10 in MVP. Yeah,
you never know. I could see Will Smith getting some votes. So and you also, I was just curious to look at Max Muncy's numbers. He's got 9 home runs and 28 RBI. Like he's pretty damn good. Yeah, I know. That's it for him, right?
Whatever.
They're loaded. They are loaded.